Welcome to Democracy Unchained, where we learn together how government works and what we can do to make it work better for us. Now, if you're like me, you're watching these conversations happening about relief and recovery, and you're asking yourself, wait, how does this work? Why are all the things I care about getting cut back or cut completely? Who makes this decision? Well, don't worry, because I got you. Now, in our very first episode, we are taking on the fundamental question: how does a bill become a law? Now, first, there's a draft of the bill itself. Now, anybody can come up with the law, but only a sitting member of Congress can draft the bill. The person who is the primary behind the bill is called the sponsor. Other people who support the bill are called co-sponsors. Next thing that happens is the bill gets introduced. Now, if it's being sponsored by a member of the House of Representatives, it gets introduced there. If it's being sponsored by a member of the Senate, it gets introduced there. Next, the bill goes to committee. Now, committees are where Congresspeople with various interests and various areas of expertise come together to debate the bill. And it's there that they decide whether or not it's going to pass in the full Congress. Sometimes committees hold hearings, and they want to listen to experts on what impacts the bill are going to have. Committees can hear testimony from the executive branch, which is basically the head dude's office. They can hear testimony from experts, opponents, or supporters, and all of that gets entered into the record. If the committee doesn't act on the bill, which means take a vote, it's DOA, dead on arrival. But if the committee does act on the bill, and by act, I mean vote to move it out of committee and on to the next step, what happens from there is that it goes to a subcommittee. And a subcommittee is basically like a smaller, more specialized committee that specializes in the topic of the bill. That smaller committee can do studies on the bill, it can call for more hearings, or even make changes to the bill. If the bill goes to subcommittee, that means it has to be voted on, again, to go back to the full committee. And a bill only goes forward if it gets out of committee. So once it goes back to the full committee, they do the same thing that the itty-bitty committee did. They mark it up, they make changes and amendments, and then they decide if it will go to the floor, meaning the full body, for a vote. If they don't recommend the bill to be considered by the full body, it dies. If they do recommend the bill to go for a full vote, that process is called ordering a bill reported. If the bill gets ordered reported, that means it goes to the full chamber, either the House or the Senate, for more debate and more discussion, and all changes have to be approved by that body before it can be voted on. The bill is then called for a vote, and it either passes or it dies. When a bill is passed in one chamber, it has to go to the other chamber and go through the same process. Now, the other chamber can either approve the bill, they can ignore the bill, they can reject the bill, or they can change the bill once they've received it. Sometimes there's a conference committee, another committee, which is created to resolve any differences between different versions of the bill that emerge as a result. If that committee can't agree, the bill dies. If the committee resolves their differences, the resolved version of the bill has to be voted on, again, by both chambers. If the bill gets this far, honey, it goes to the president's desk. If the president approves, it's signed into law. If the president takes no action after 10 days, the bill automatically becomes law. If the president doesn't like the bill, they can veto it. And if the president takes no action on a bill for 10 days and Congress has already adjourned, that's called a pocket veto. But the white man in the White House is not the final say. If the president vetoes the bill, Congress can meet again and be like, bruh, you on one. And if 2/3 of both chambers vote to override the veto, the bill passes and it goes into effect. Fun fact, the first time this whole override the veto thing ever happened was under Andrew Johnson's presidency, where he refused to make freedmen's bureaus permanent after the Civil War. Basically, Johnson became president after they killed Lincoln for doing too much to end slavery, which he wasn't even really trying to do, but we won't come back to that another time. In 1865, Congress established the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, which became known in shorthand as the Freedmen's Bureaus. The whole purpose of these bureaus was to redistribute resources to the people they were being denied to, and, if we're keeping it a buck, stolen from. But it wasn't just for Black folks. It was white people too, getting housing, clothing, food, and getting help negotiating labor contracts, which was not even allowed or a thing at this time. That whole 40 acres and a mule thing, well, that came from freedmen's bureaus. Now back to Jackass Johnson. He was not about that life, and he did not want Black people or poor white people to have shit. He was full on for the Confederacy, and when he became president after they killed Lincoln for doing too much, he was basically like, fuck your freedom. So Johnson and Congress had beef, because dude was trying to restore the Confederacy. And Congress was like, bruh, we got money to make and a country to unite, so get up out the way. Johnson vetoed a bill that Congress sent him, extending the life of the Freedmen's Bureaus. And Congress was like, no, you don't. And thus, it was the first time Congress ever used the mechanism to override the presidential veto.